taught me how to fight, right? My dad was my martial arts instructor, and early on, I started martial arts before I even started school. And my first tournament was before I started school. Go figure that, right? But there are things that I learned in martial arts that most people kind of take for granted. And I say that because most people that know that I study martial arts, they know me to be just a fighter, right? And it's very simplistic to understand that as a fighter. So I would go in and maybe I have this tough exterior, or this tough mentality about me. And yeah, okay, yeah, that's fairly true. But there's so much more about the art of fighting that I had to learn. When to fight, how to fight, when not to fight. A lot of self-control, a lot of self-discipline, all those things. But think about a fighter, right? So even those who are familiar with something like boxing, think about a fighter. You have those who are an orthodox fighter. So orthodox fighter who is someone who is right-handed, and so they kind of fight in the orthodox style, which means that their power stance is with their power stance is their dominant. It's kind of like left foot forward. So this way, most of the power is coming from the right hand.
Watch
the right
out,
hand,
vehicle
which
on
is coming
shoulder
from
ahead.
the rear, and so they're kind of guarding that. Now, the way I was taught was, yeah, that hand is strong, and you work on that, but that's not the way. That's not where you're focusing. I was taught to fight southpaw. I was taught to fight southpaw. Now, it's a strategy, and so that it speaks to what I was saying about understanding the art of fighting. Because if you are dominant right hand, you are expected to always go in the dominant style. If you are left-handed, you are expected to go in and fight southpaw. Now, granted, if you fight southpaw, you have some advantages, a lot of advantages, because most people do not understand how to fight a southpaw fighter. You have to be seriously trained on how to fight a southpaw fighter. But if you are a dominant right-hand person expected to fight someone in an orthodox style, you normally go in that capacity. You would begin fighting southpaw. You would begin fighting orthodox. And so your opponent basically, the mind is to strategize on how to take you out based off of what they know. They have every expectation on how to take you down because of how they know how to fight someone who is an orthodox fighter. But the key for me was, that's what you saw. You always saw me as an orthodox fighter until the moment I switched. I would always switch up. I would switch up at the most unexpected moment. And in that unexpected moment, I would switch over to southpaw and fight southpaw and immediately take you out. So whenever I would compete in my matches, I would always win. It's always like either a 10-minute match or first 3 points, right? First 3 points win, or you have a 10-minute match. You max it out. But for me, it was 3. 1, 2, 3. Quick, out, done. And so I remember someone telling me years ago, it was like, well, you're not a fighter. You never had an opportunity to fight anybody. And you obviously just never had any competition because you always win and it's always 3-0. But what they failed to understand was that I was trained. I was skillfully trained to throw off my opponent at a moment's notice. And throwing them off at a moment's notice was to switch the game up. So they would say, give us the cue to start our match. And I would start off in orthodox. And then I would kind of move around a little bit. I would see how my opponent would move so I can study them for a second to see how they move, how fast they would move, how slow they would move, to see if they're orthodox, to see if they're southpaw. And then also, how they lead. If they're a defensive opponent, if they're an offensive opponent. And so it doesn't take long to see that. And then when the moment is right, switch over, southpaw, and strike. 1, 2, 3. Never failed. And so the matches did not last long. And so because they did not last long, One, it did not take a lot of mental exertion. It did not take a lot of physical exertion. And so I could go on about my day and I would always win.
Watch out,
and so,
vehicle on shoulder ahead.
It's, I always talk about preparation and doing things that, whatever it is that we need to accomplish. And this is why preparation is so important. And so we get used to just kind of doing things a very, very traditional way. Whatever it is that we are attempting to do in our lives, we get so used to kind of like this routine way, this traditional way of doing things. But if you set yourself up to doing something non-traditional, doing something unorthodox, then this is where you start changing things. This is where you start changing the game for you. This is where you really start winning. We say if you want to do something, if you want to get something different, you want to have different results, then you have to do something different. But part of doing something different is learning how to step outside the box, learning how to challenge yourself to do something different, challenging yourself to learn something new, challenging and pushing yourself beyond the limits of what you are doing now. And so that is what I was trained to do. I was trained to do something extremely different for me. That side of me was not, that wasn't my strong side. I had to develop that side of me. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of discipline. It was painful. And it took a lot of what I always say, stick-to-itiveness, right? So this way, when it didn't work out for me initially, I had to keep pushing and keep sticking it out and not giving up. And so this is where we have to stick through things and stick to it, even when the going gets tough. Because if you don't, then you don't see the results that you want. You'll never get to the place that you want to get to if you're not willing to push yourself to do something different. You can keep following the path that everybody else is following. You can keep doing the things that everybody else is doing. And you can keep letting people tell you that you have to do it the same old way that everybody else is doing. And if you continue to do that, you will always get the same results that everybody else is getting. But if you want the results that are meant for you, then you have to start stepping outside of the box and pushing yourself to do something different, learn something different, and build yourself up to start setting yourself to be in a position to receive what it is that you want. You want something different? Do something different. You want to have something greater? Then that means that you have to push yourself to greater limits and start moving yourself into new heights. So that is my message for you today. Push yourself, start striving for something better in your life. Because if you don't, then you'll end up with the same results and wind up in the same status quo. So, hope you understand this message and that you receive it. And I pray that you'll start pushing yourself to start seeing the great things that you can truly begin to do in your life and start receiving the things that you truly deserve and desire. May God be a blessing unto you.